Go ahead and get started, everybody. I think we're going to leave the door open because it's a little bit toasty in here. Who's never been here before? Alright, couple. Alright, cool. Well, welcome everyone. The class tonight is on, well, I call it How to Eat 101. And it's really kind of a, well, first of all, let me tell you what I'm not going to tell you in this class. This isn't like a eat this, don't eat this kind of thing. It's like, you know, don't eat the Dairy Queen Blizzard, but it's okay to eat the cheesecake because it has less calories. Okay, we won't be talking about any of that kind of stuff at this kind of class. You guys, most of you know me pretty well. Yeah, exactly. That's what happens. So, and the other thing I want to tell you is that, as always, this is for information. You know, everybody's at a different place in their life. Everybody's at a different place according to their health. I'm not the food Nazi. I'm not the food police. Yes, I give people recommendations on what to eat and what not to eat. Yes, I have all kinds of food lists and food combining principles and all kinds of great things that you guys can learn. This is just an overall, general blanket picture of how we should be eating as a society. And as I always do, is I always use time as our example. How have we eaten as human beings for thousands of years up until this crazy processed world we've created in the last 100 years? So that's going to be the main focus of the class tonight. We're going to talk about raw foods versus cooked foods, organic foods versus non-organic foods, what's better, why, etc., and also teach you guys how you can eat well for cheap. It's unfortunate that fruits and vegetables cost more than meat and dairy, but that's because the government subsidizes meat and dairy and not fruits and vegetables. So everything's kind of backwards, okay? But there's ways to circumvent that. So those are kind of some more of the things we're going to talk about tonight. The first thing that I think is important, I did this in one other class, but there's no other class more important to talk about this than in this class, in how to eat, how we should be eating, and especially in today's world, is the definitions of food and the definition of poison. And if you actually look at and these are straight out of the Merriam-Webster dictionary, okay? It's pretty obvious if you look at the definitions that a lot of the things we consider foods in our society aren't really food based on this definition. It more fits the definition of poison, because a poison is a substance that causes injury, illness, or death, especially by chemical means. Interesting they use the word chemical because we have over 70,000 chemicals in our food supply today. To kill or harm, to pollute, or to corrupt. The substance, through its chemical action, kills, injures, or impairs an organism. And then if you look at food, obviously it's something that's supposed to nourish us. Okay, so it's very important to understand these definitions. I think that's very enlightening for a lot of people that have never even really looked at those definitions before. And if you think about everything you eat on a daily basis and you try to apply it, every single food that you put in your mouth, everything you put in your mouth is going to apply to one of these two definitions. So just keep that in mind as we're eating.
Wheat.
So, 10 things to understand about food before we even get started on giving you recommendations and things like that. The first thing, and yeah, some of these things sound kind of, I don't know how to describe it, kind of maybe extreme, maybe kind of in your face. Well, that's just kind of how I am. I try to make light of it, but at the same time I'm serious about it, okay? So the first one, yeah, that sounds pretty extreme. Everything you put in your mouth every day either brings about life or brings about death. Okay, now yeah, that sounds extreme because most things we eat obviously don't cause us to have a heart attack right then and there and die. You know, unless somebody's trying to poison their spouse or something, that, you know, for whatever reason. But most of the things we put in our mouth do bring death, but it brings the slow death. And that's the problem. That's one of the biggest problems. A lot of these things that we're experiencing are a cumulative effect. Okay, so just like the definition of food versus poison, everything you put in your mouth, based on those definitions, is either going to bring life to your body at the cellular level and feed the cells of your body, or it's going to bring death to the cells of your body. Everything happens at the cellular level. So every food you eat, every thought you have, all your emotions, all of these things intertwined is what makes up our health long term. That's why some people age faster than others. That's why some people get diseases sooner than other people. Why some people don't get illnesses at all. It all depends on your daily choices, and that's one of the things I try to stress. If you wait until you get an illness or a disease, it's very challenging. It's hard to sell prevention. Okay, but it all starts with what you do and don't eat every single day. as always, I'll just say it since there's a couple of people. If you ever have a question, just throw your hand up. We'll answer it right away, okay? Number 2 thing, the number 1 cause of disease in the United States is food. Did anyone argue that point? I think we all know that.
Stress.
So, stress, okay, yeah, we can put that one right up there.
Still, if you're eating healthy, actually, I don't think it would have the effect.
Yeah, true. So, food. It's food, it's food, it's food. We know it, but we haven't figured out how to fix it, and it's so confusing out there that even though we know it, we still don't know what to do on a daily basis because there's so much confusing information out there. There's so much contradictory information out there. Marketing and advertising, every other commercial, it's mass confusion. But understand that the number 1 thing killing people is food. And you can look at that all around the world. In industrialized nations, so we're kind of getting to the third one. Industrialized nations, people die by eating too much food. And in a lot of third world countries, people die because they don't get enough food. But regardless of the reason, everybody around the world is dying because of food. It's pretty wild. Like, where's the middle ground? Where's the balance? So, the third one, cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. Okay, these are the big 3. Okay, the big 3 diseases that all industrialized nations see. And the reason it's in industrialized nations and not in third world countries, I'm saying it doesn't exist, but it's more like 1 in every 1,000, not 1 in every 2 like it is here. Okay, is because these are diseases that most other countries cannot afford. Does that make sense? Okay, so if you're poor and you live in a third world country, you can't afford to go to Starbucks every day and to go to McDonald's and drink a case of soda a week, and you can't afford these things. Okay? They can afford what they can grow and what they can eat to keep them alive. So they don't get cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. Now they get other diseases. They might get deficiency diseases. Might get more infectious diseases because the cleanliness factor. There's other things going on. But these 3, that's why I stress these so much. Is they're 3 of the biggest killers and the 3 most completely preventable things. Because again, it all goes back to what we eat. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. Number 4, the closer it is to God, the better. The more man has touched it, the worse. That's pretty simple. We've done classes on good fats versus bad fats. For some people it's confusing. For me it's easy. Did God make it or did man make it? Avocado, coconut, flaxseed versus trans fats, hydrogenated fats, and deep fat fried food, fatty foods. It's pretty easy to figure out who made which. Okay? So the more man touches it, processes it, refines it, adds chemicals to it, adds dyes to it, preserves it, bleaches it, stains it, whatever the heck they do, the worse it is. Okay, so we need to get back to eating what God intended, what God has created for us. Number 5, since the beginning of the human race, we have grown and eaten our own food. And we don't do that anymore. There's very, very few people that grow their own food. Now there's some people that have a little garden, but for most people it's just kind of like a fun little hobby. You're not doing it to sustain and feed your family. But I think it's very important that we get back to that. 6, beauty is dependent on your lifestyle and the food you eat, not face creams and surgeries. It's really interesting. Right before I started the class, I was reading Yahoo, and there was a lady on there who set the record. She had 52 surgeries, like on every part of her body, and each surgery was like $100,000. So it was millions of dollars. And she looks like a clown. I mean, you can't even recognize her. It's really sad. And we're going to do a class called The Face, if any of you have seen that. But what we're going to talk about is every line, bump, wrinkle, everything on your face is all it is an indicator on the health of the inside of your body and your internal organs. Okay, so you want to have a beautiful face that just shines. You want to work on your overall health. Okay? Most famous people know this. A lot of your average Joes don't know this. But for people that are famous and looks is everything, believe me, they have fitness coaches and nutrition coaches and everybody under the sun making sure that they take care of themselves because they know that the inside of their body and that health is directly related to the looks, how their face looks. 7, there's 21,000 chemicals in our food supply and growing. The number one addiction in America is food. I say that because we think of people when they're addicted to things, they're alcohol and AA meetings or cigarettes or drugs, cocaine, things like that. But who thinks of food as an addiction? It's hands down the number one addiction in America. Hands down. I think it's probably more of an addiction than everything else combined. 9, if you don't take the time to care for and prepare your own food, your food won't take the time to care for you. Okay? We're driving through fast food, shoving stuff in our mouth. We don't eat with our families anymore. We eat in front of the TV. We don't take time to prepare our food. It's packaged dinners, things like that. That has a direct reflection on how well that food is going to treat your body. Number 10, spoiled Americans. I don't think anyone can doubt that. Again, our excess is our downfall. It's our ability to have and eat and do anything we want that is the main cause of illness in this country. So as we're all turning our pages. So I devised it into 3 different parts. If you have questions about like a specific food or something like that, no problem. We'll chat about it. I've done a lot of classes in the past about food. I did a whole class on soy, corn, wheat, dairy. So you can look at some past classes, but I'll answer those types of questions. Again, this is just kind of an overall picture, just give you an idea of how we're supposed to be eating in general. So the first thing is, what's wrong with the grocery store? Well, as I say further down, highlighted in bold, the grocery store is basically a food graveyard. Okay, again, that might sound kind of harsh, but it's a fact. Okay, grocery stores have not existed for 7,000 years. Okay, they were markets on the side of streets, fruits and vegetables that farmers had grown, and they brought it to market to sell. Okay, this grocery store thing is less than 100 years old. Okay, the first grocery stores did not exist before 1900. Yeah, they had those little like corner country market stores where you buy some grains or whatever. But grocery stores as we know them, have existed for less than 100 years. And for some of you who haven't been in my classes before, I've given detailed explanation about the shelf life business and how that all came to be. But just in a nutshell, shelf life foods were created because they were looking for foods that could sustain our army and our military when they were out on long tours, like say out in the jungle or out in the middle of nowhere, and they needed to live for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and they didn't have food available to them. So these things were created as survival foods, and they realized that when they take all the nutrients out of the foods, that they wouldn't spoil. That makes sense. So hence, that's kind of how the shelf life business was born. The white bread, the white sugar, the white flour, the white processed everything. Because it can sit on the store shelves. Companies know that they won't lose as much profit because they're not going to have as much waste and as much spoilage. So that's how this whole shelf life business started. And it's been tragic ever since. So the processed foods are an obvious one. I'm sure all you guys have heard, yeah, shop around the outside, don't shop in the middle. Well, I guess that's, better than shopping in the middle, but it's not much better, unfortunately. We're told eat fruits and vegetables, eat fruits and vegetables. When you go to the grocery store, you're eating dead, sprayed, waxed fruits and vegetables. To give you a good example, I worked for a transportation company for 8 years. And we did a lot of produce hauling. I arranged freight shipments. And I remember, and I wasn't even into health back then, I just remember this guy telling me, this truck driver telling me that he would go to Washington State and he picked up apples on his flatbed truck and he delivered them, down to California or Nevada or wherever from the state of Washington. Well, the warehouse where he picked up these apples, what they did is they would grow the apples. They would, during season, obviously all these things are seasonal. Different fruits and vegetables have different seasons, obviously, correct? So when apples were in season, they'd grow as many apples as they could. The ones that were left over, they'd ship to the warehouse. They'd suck all the oxygen out of the warehouse and spray it with gas so that the apples can't decompose. So they would sit in the warehouse And then when it wasn't apple season, they would go to the warehouse, pick up the apples, and deliver them all around the country so that we could have apples that aren't in season. Okay, so that's what's happening. That's just one example. That's just apples. Okay? This is happening with our fruits and vegetables. So I think it's pretty obvious to most of us that the most nutritious food is going to be one like an apple tree, we pick right off the tree and eat it, right? I don't think anybody would question that. Okay? We know fruit's ready when it's ripe. It turns a certain color, has a certain smell, drops from the tree. Okay? In order for your fruits and vegetables at your grocery store to be ripe, they have to pick it at least a couple weeks early. Because they have to pick it early, they have to ship it. You know, if you've ever looked at where your food comes from, you'll see apples are from New Zealand and Chile and, you know, all these countries from around the world. You know, how early do you think they have to pick this produce so that when it gets to us, then it's ripe? Okay, it hasn't been naturally ripened by nature. Okay, so it's nutrient void. I'm not saying it's totally worthless, but there's very few nutrients in that food. Yeah, Tom?
Well, have there been any studies to look at that?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they studied the nutrient content of foods.
Grocery store?
Yep, absolutely. And the best way to do that is a bricks meter. And we're going to talk about that a little bit on how you can measure your food at the grocery store. But there are ways to do that. There's been a lot of studies done on that, absolutely.
So are all tomatoes that are picked when they're green and then put in like an oxidizing tank that actually just turns skin red, but they're still essentially a green tomato on the inside?
Right. Yep. So there's a lot of that going on, the waxing, the spraying, the coloring, you know, because we like everything to look all perfect and pretty and shiny, and that's how we know it's a good fruit, right? It's pretty and shiny, right? Because we don't live in reality. Okay? You go to the farmer's market and you get awesome apples that are organic and not sprayed with chemicals. They're going to have little tiny blemishes on them. And most people, we're so brainwashed, we're going to be like, oh my gosh, that apple's bad. It's got a little dot on it. You know, we're just, again, we don't live in reality. We don't know where food comes from anymore. So that's another one of the main problems, even just shopping around the outside, is that the fruits and vegetables are, you know, there's not a lot of nutrients in it. Grocery stores are interested in profit, therefore shelf life. So the longer the shelf life products they can have in the store, the more profit for the grocery store. Same with the food companies. The problem with food companies is it's all advertised and it's all marketing. You know, there's been all kinds of controversy about cereal companies advertising to kids, and you know they put stuff on a certain level of the shelf so that the kid can see it, and putting toys and everything. You know, nothing has to do with nutrition when you go to the grocery store. Nothing has to do with nutrition. Everything has to do with marketing and advertising. How they can sell their product to you. Again, we're totally brainwashed. Taste. If it tastes good. You know, there's I think it's in Fast Food Nation. I think it's in Fast Food Nation, the book, where they talk about the chemical companies up in New Jersey. Some of you are shaking your head, you probably read this book. There's multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporations in New Jersey full of chemists in white lab coats, and all they do is combine different types of chemicals to make things smell a certain way, taste a certain way, make you addicted to the foods so that you keep coming back. You can't just Lay's potato chips, you can't just eat one. You know, things that they literally put in foods. I'm not saying Lay's potato chip does that, I don't know, but fast food and stuff like that, absolutely. You don't think McDonald's has researchers that they pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to figure out what exactly we can put in our food so that people get addicted to it? You don't think that's part of their marketing strategy? Of course it is. So, marketing, taste, and price. So price, I mean, that's another issue. People go to the grocery store and they buy cheap stuff. Well, cheap stuff is crap. If you buy it at the grocery store, you can buy cheap stuff at the farmer's market. That's a whole other ballgame. But if you buy cheap stuff at the store, they make it very hard for you to buy healthy foods. You want to go buy organic fruits and vegetables, your bill's going to be like 3 times more than if you buy Rice-A-Roni and Hamburger Helper and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's a lot cheaper to feed your family that way. So, you know, there's things we're fighting against. But we're going to give solutions, of course. And then I put, just to be kind of funny, but again to be kind of serious, the grocery store, the last sentence. The grocery store is a place to stock up on things for a famine, for a plague, for a nuclear war, or for the end of times. Great place for that, because most of that stuff in there is not going to spoil. Okay? If you had to, if you absolutely had to, I'm sure Twinkies could sustain you. If you had to live on, all you had was a crate of Twinkies and there's a nuclear war, you would eat the Twinkies. It is what it is. Okay? So I see most grocery store foods as survival foods, not foods choices we should be making on a daily basis. So local farms and gardens. The food's alive. Okay, the food's been picked yesterday, the day before, heck, even that morning sometimes. Picked when it's ripe. A lot of people are worried about organic when you go to the farmer's market. Don't worry about organic when you go to the farmer's market. Okay, we're going to talk about organic and what that means. But it's very difficult and expensive for the small town farmer to be organic. If I grew some amazing tomatoes and cucumbers in my garden in really good soil and they were just tasted wonderful and amazing and brought them to the farmer's market and sold them, obviously they're not certified organic, okay? But I would be all over that. I mean, that's the kind of food we should be eating. So talk to the farmers. Most of them are totally like open books. Hey, come down to the farm, check it out. They're all about it. So talk to them, find out how they grew their foods, if they use any chemicals. They're usually very honest. Some of the apple farmers use one chemical because they need to spray it that one time just to make sure the bugs don't get it or whatever. They'll tell you. That's better than the 36 known chemicals that are sprayed on every apple in the grocery store. So better choices and less expensive. Quality control. I'm big on people starting their own gardens. You know where your food comes from if you grow it yourself. Again, we don't know where our food comes from anymore. Our kids don't know where the food comes from. It's kind of sad. So we need to get back to that. It's amazing my parents, we expand the garden a little bit every year, and last year, such overflow and ain't even funny. What's the size of it? Maybe 10 by 10? Okay, 12 by 12. It's a little tiny garden. It's 1/20th of the yard, maybe, and it's enough food to have salads every day throughout the whole summer. Herbs, we did like 10 different herbs. Some of these herbs like holy basil and oregano, and the stuff just like goes mad. It's just like grows out of control. So we definitely need to get back to growing our own food. It's cheap. Yes, organic stuff at whole paycheck is expensive. Okay? But the farmer's market is crazy, crazy cheap, especially when it's in season. Like when the cucumbers are pumping at the end of August, oh my gosh, they're practically giving them away. That's when I do my juice cleanse, where I'm juicing 10 cucumbers a day, because you go to the farmer's market and I got those canvas bags and literally fill the canvas bag full of cucumbers and it's $4 or $5. That's like one cucumber at Whole Foods. I don't think I'm exaggerating on that. I think cucumbers are at least $2 to $3 a piece at Whole Foods, are they not? So take advantage of right around now, maybe more the end of the early May through October. We got a good 6-7 months where we're going to just be rocking on food. There's be no issues getting good, cheap, quality, affordable food. No excuse. There's farmers markets all over Kansas City. I have a resource list that, if you want, I can give you links to all the websites for all the farmers markets in all of Kansas City. There's definitely one where you're at. And you can make deals with them too. That's the other cool thing, man. Back to the old system of bartering. We had an event here, and I went and talked to the lady who sold grapes, and she sold me all of her grapes, saved them for me, and gave me a sweet deal on it. They were seeded grapes. If you've never had seeded grapes, which a lot of you probably haven't because you think that's weird or icky or something, they're amazing. Amazing. It's like the best thing you've ever had. Who eats seeded grapes? Are they not the best thing ever? Yeah, and they're so night and day different from the seedless grapes you get in the store. So I put a summary at the end, just kind of an order of the ideal way to eat fresh foods. Number 1, your own garden. Number 2, steal from your neighbor's garden. Well, ask them first. Ask them first. It helps to know them, Grow different things, share. Then local produce, farmers markets. And then your last resort should be the grocery store. Okay, so the next point, organic versus conventional. So a lot of people don't really understand what organic means. They just have this assumption that organic is fantastic and wonderful. Organic is best. I don't care that an organic cucumber is $10, but the conventional one's $1. I'm buying the organic one. Okay, that's kind of the mindset a lot of people have. They just really don't know what organic means. Organic, and there's a lot of rules and regulations when it comes to organic farming. But one is it's expensive for the farmer. They have to go through a process. It's about a 3-year process. They come out and they test the soil. You know, they make sure that they're not spraying any chemicals. I mean, it's a process to become certified organic. So they have to charge more because, well, they probably pay the government a lot of money to get certified, unfortunately. But the thing about organic is all that it really means is not sprayed with a bunch of chemicals. That's really all it means. It doesn't tell you anything about the growing conditions. Doesn't tell you anything about the soil or the quality of the soil or the mineral content of the soil. It tells you nothing. It doesn't tell you about the farmer. You know, it doesn't tell you anything. All it tells you is they did not use pesticides and herbicides. So that's great. You know, we don't want chemicals on our food, but it's not always necessarily worth it to pay 3 to 4 times more for fruits and vegetables just because it's not organic. Yes.
I think that, like, at farmers markets, that they have, like, that they can, quite a few people have that. Like, the farmers, like, they'll get the USDA or organic.
They do. If you go to the river market, especially downtown, there's a lot of organic produce down there. It's just most of them aren't local. If you've even been to the river market, it's great. There's tons and tons of vendors down there, but most of them are local. I really like the Overland Park one, which is just down here, and it's 95%, if not all local. In fact, they got in a big little tiff because there were some non-local growers coming in, and they wouldn't allow them in, and then they were protesting, holding up signs and all this stuff. So they really care about just having local people. So I'm a big fan of the Overland Park Farmers Market. I can't speak to the other ones because they're all over. There's Lee Summit and Merriam, and there's all kinds of different ones, Olathe, Gardner. But yeah, be careful when you go to the one in the river market. You can find stuff that's certified organic, but it might not be local. Local is always best.
The inner strips are usually local. I mean, like within a couple hours, an hour.
Which one's that?
The inner strips.
Oh, the inner strips
And
at the
then
farmer
there's
river
the
market?
end
Okay.
ones that they're always at the end.
Okay.
They aren't, but usually in all those 3 strips,
Right.
they're local within like 2 hours or an hour.
Yeah, that sounds good. Right. Yeah, in the open area in the center,
Don't go around
as
the edge,
opposed to the
that's all
edge.
shipped in.
Yeah. Yeah, because those guys are there year round and they ship their
Yeah.
stuff in. The guys around the edge, the established shops around the outside. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so that being said, how do you figure out how nutrient dense your food is? Well, I haven't even done this. I should. I would like to. But at the end of number 1, I put that a Brix meter can solve this problem. So basically, what a Brix meter is, it's something you can buy online. I don't think it's real expensive, and it measures the mineral density of your foods. Okay, so you know how quality your fruits and vegetables are based on the mineral density of it. An easy test for a tomato is you stick it in a thing of water, like a jug of water, and if it sinks, it's dense, and if it floats, it's very void and weak in nutrients. Okay, fruits and vegetables should be very heavy, very loaded in fruits and minerals. Oh, here's a quick trivia question. What do you think has more nutrient density, mineral-wise, fruits or vegetables? Heard a little of both. Does anyone want to be brave enough to say their answer and why they think so?
I think it's vegetables because most of them are in the ground. It's like stuff from the ground.
Okay. Does anyone else have an idea? Okay, why?
I'm thinking I read it in 80-10-10. Douglas Grant. I think he could not.
Can you say why? Okay, so the answer is fruit. Okay, so here's the reason. Most vegetables are annuals. You have to plant them every year. You plant them in the ground, they're there for a couple months. They got a couple months to collect nutrients. What about fruit trees? They're trees. They're established. They've been there 10, 15 years. They got roots going 100 yards. Okay, so fruit has a much more dense mineral content than vegetables. So FYI, I thought that was fun. 2, you do not always need to buy organic. That will save you money. We're going to go over just a few things on the next couple of pages on what you do and don't need to buy organic. There's some things that I recommend just always buying organic. they're just sprayed with every kind of thing possibly known to man. Apples are the worst. I've talked in the past in classes about fruits and vegetables. A lot of them are this way now, but the monocultures, okay, where they're one variety and they're growing thousands and thousands of acres of one variety. That makes it very genetically weak. When it's genetically weak, it's very prone to the elements and fungus and insects and just all the types of things in nature that can destroy it because they're really, really weak. Apples is one of the weakest crops on the planet because, you know, we only eat 5 or 6 varieties out of the thousands of varieties of apples that exist. So it makes them very, very weak. This is why they have to spray them with so many chemicals. So we'll talk about, you know, which ones you don't need to buy organic. In general, just kind of a general rule of thumb, if it's got a really thin skin, you need to buy organic. Your apples, your peaches, your grapes, just think of things that have a really, really thin skin. The thicker skin, the better, okay, as far as organic. So some fun food quotes. I'm going to go through a few of these because they're kind of cool. Let's see. Oh, and I have an announcement to make. I'll just go ahead and let you know. I'm going to write a big write-up on it tomorrow, and I'm going to put it in my newsletter. But I officially went vegetarian, and I just want you to know that it's been many, many years in the process. And my parents are very close to it if they're not. My mom's shaking her head, so. So it's been a long process. You know, I'm going to explain kind of my whole journey to becoming vegetarian. Because, you know, I've always came up here and said, you know, I give you information, it's up for you to make decisions. I would never tell anyone that they need to be a vegetarian, you know, but we do need to be more intelligent about our choices, and I think the more information we get, the more consciousness we get, the better decisions we can make. I'm not saying vegetarian is the perfect conscious choice to make. I'm just saying that, you know, we develop these ideas and these decisions we make through life as we develop our consciousness and our awareness and our education. So I say all that because Albert Einstein said nothing will benefit human health and increase the chances for survival of life on Earth as much as the evolution to a vegetarian diet. Okay, and we could talk in detail about that, but all the longest lived cultures around the world, I'm not saying 100%, but they're 99% vegetarian. Okay, the Hunzas in the Himalayas, the Vikal Brahmins down in Peru, the Okinawans in Japan, they eat a little bit of fish, that's it. The Hunzas in the Himalayas do a little bit of goat's milk. That's pretty much their only non-vegetarian food. So that's a pretty common trait. There's been a lot of studies done that shows vegetarians live longer. I don't want to get into all the details again because my job's not to sway you one way or the other, but to let you know that I think it's a great way to go. For a lot more reasons than just health, that's for sure. And like I said, I'm going to write a big thing up on that and send it out in my newsletter. Again, just my personal journey.
Will I put it on Facebook?
Yeah, I'll post it on Facebook. Fernand Point, I have no idea who this guy is or if it's even a guy, but I like the quote. If the divine creator has taken pains to give us delicious and exquisite things to eat, the less we can do is prepare them well and serve them with ceremony. I thought that was pretty cool. Julia Child, she's pretty hilarious if anybody's seen her. You don't have to cook fancy or complicated masterpieces, just good food from fresh ingredients. That's good advice. We hear a lot about comfort foods, foods being comforting for us. Food is the most primitive form of comfort. Sheila Graham. Let's see. This is interesting. 1st century BC, Lucretius said, "What is food to one man may be fierce poison to others," which is true. This one's funny. The old law in Ireland says it's illegal to give someone food in which it has been found a dead mouse or a weasel. That's a great law. We should maybe do that here. I don't know. I really don't know what's in some of that food, so maybe that should be the law.
Oh, geez.
And then for all you wine drinkers, you got any wine drinkers out here? Okay, cool. Hey, nothing wrong with drinking wine. People have been drinking wine for thousands of years. The Greeks and Romans never ever had dinner without wine. Studies have shown it helps with digestion. There's a lot of benefits to drinking wine. A lot of people just drink too much, but there's nothing wrong with drinking wine, so I'm not anti-wine. But for all you wine drinkers, I love this quote. Food without wine is a corpse. Wine without food is a ghost. United and well mixed, they are as body and soul, living partners. So all your wine drinkers are like that. All right, so I'm not going to go in detail over this, but I just gave you a little list of 10 organic foods that are worth it, because I wanted to expand it beyond fruits and vegetables. You know, when you're taking care of your infant, you know, baby foods, definitely buy organic. You know, children are very vulnerable because they haven't developed immune systems yet. Yes?
What about dandelion? I wonder about dandelion.
What about it?
Well, should you buy it or
Oh, no. Most herbs, like all the herbs in my store, are either organic or wild crafted. But there's not a lot of, I don't know if there's large dandelion farms with pesticides being sprayed. You know what I mean? So, but just buy my stuff. You don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
Butter and milk. So if you're going to have dairy products, you know, you definitely want to go organic. With dairy products, all organic means in dairy products is not, the animals aren't given antibiotics or growth hormones. Okay, it does not mean it's not pasteurized or homogenized. It's still pasteurized and homogenized. That's by law. Actually, I think there is a company that gets away without doing the homogenization. The Chateau one or whatever. I don't know if anyone knows that for sure. But anyway, raw. You can definitely do raw dairy. There's tons of raw dairy farms around here. We're very lucky to have that. I can give you a list of them. When the farmers markets are cranking up, you can find out where they're at. Okay, so we need to start supporting raw dairy. Cantaloupe, cucumbers, grapes, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you can look at that another time. Then the next page, it gives you a full list from top to bottom, the most sprayed to the least sprayed. Okay, on the bottom, the ones I probably do are, I would say from about 30, if you're looking at the 43 fruits and vegetables, and this is just me personally, from about 29 or 30 down to 43, I never buy those organic. Okay, that's just me. You don't really need to, in my opinion. But the rest of them, definitely. And the top 15, absolutely, because they're sprayed with the most stuff. So, pretty much all. And it's interesting that blueberries isn't that far down, because all berries are sprayed, but strawberries by far the worst are sprayed with the most chemicals. Strawberries have to be sprayed with a lot of chemicals. So that. Anyway, that's just a reference list. You can bring this grocery shopping with you, and you know, save some money. Okay, so part 3, raw food versus cooked food. Okay, there's no doubt about it that there's more benefits to eating raw foods than cooked foods. It doesn't mean cooked food is bad. Doesn't mean it's toxic. There's a lot of raw foodists that say, you know, like, cooked food is the devil, you know. Yes, back to the longest lived cultures on earth, the Hunzas. They don't really cook anything. They eat fresh fruits and vegetables. Their almonds and their apricots, when they get the seeds and the nuts, they wash them and they lay them out in the sun, and as soon as they start to sprout, they eat them. Okay, they've been doing sprouting since the beginning of their culture. Sprouting is big here, but like it's weird to everyone else except for the people that do it. You know, it's kind of like you're into that weird sprouting thing. So
How do you eat a seed though? It has hard in your teeth.
the seeds,
Yeah.
well, like apricot seeds, for example, you actually break the shell and you eat the little seed inside.
So you're just gonna eat the meat part of it.
Right.
The inside, okay.
Yeah, the inside of
That
it.
makes sense.
Yeah. So like plums, any ones that have those hard little shells, you can actually break those open and eat the seeds. The Hunzas in the Himalayas are actually, their wealth is measured by the number of apricot trees that they own. So the apricot trees are very important to them in their culture. And a lot of research, just side note, a lot of research, vitamin B17, if anyone's heard of that, amygdalin, laetril's the synthetic version, but it's known to help prevent and or reverse some cancers. Which is the seed of the apricots. A lot of health food stores sell apricot seeds. So raw foods still contain all its living properties, all its enzymes. You hear a lot of talk about enzymes and living enzymes. The main thing with enzymes in raw foods is that you don't have to create an extra burden on your body to digest it. It contains all the enzymes it needs to break down. So just like when a ripe apple falls from the tree, it's there for us to grab, or for a deer or something to come along and eat it. Within a few days, it's going to start to decompose. Okay, that's just the natural cycle of life. But it's the enzymes in there that do that. Okay? So if you eat raw foods, you have those enzymes to break down that food when you eat it. You don't create extra burden on your body. Pretty much everything we eat in America, our digestion has to start pumping all kinds of acids and enzymes and everything because there's no enzymes in it for it to digest itself. So it puts a lot of burden on our system when we're eating quote-unquote dead foods. And that's why digestive problems is like the #1 complaint in America. So raw foods don't cause an autoimmune reaction in the body. Studies have been done showing that when you eat nothing but cooked foods, that your body actually stimulates an immune system response to the cooked food because it sees it as a foreign contaminant.
What are some examples maybe of a reaction that your body might have to a food?
You might not know it. So in this case that I'm talking about, it might not be something you ever sense.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want to know other reasons for like food allergies and food sensitivities?
Maybe I guess more like what would some of those signs be that you would notice?
It's going to be hard to know just by eating cooked food.
Okay.
Okay. It's just more of something to understand that's been studied and researched. They say, like David Wolfe, I think, is the one that said that if 51% of your meal, like over half your meal, is raw, then you won't have that autoimmune reaction happening in your body. So, and again, it might not be something that you have a visible sign to it.
Right.
But it's just something that's happening in the body. So what a lot of people don't understand about the immune system is the immune system shouldn't be always going and activated. In fact, that's an overactive immune system. That means you have some kind of an infection or an illness or something the body's fighting. The immune system should be just like ready for war when it needs to be called, when it's time. It shouldn't be always in battle. Okay, that's a problem. It should just be on standby. Okay? Raw foods are very cleansing and healing to the body. Raw vegetable juices are even more healing and cleansing to the body, more bioavailable. Easy, quick way for people to get nutrients that are weak. They have major digestive issues, people that can't get anything down, they can't swallow things. Juicing is a great way to get nutrients fast. Eating raw foods, pretty much, for the most part, can reverse all of our, what I call the designer diseases. Okay, your diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. Okay, because it's the foods we eat that cause them, so eating the right foods can reverse them. To me, that's just common sense, and we see it all the time. We see it all the time. And raw foods, I love raw foods in the summertime when it's hot. Just naturally in tune with your body. Eating raw foods in the summer and eating more cooked or warm foods in the winter is a great thing to do. Raw foodists are all hardcore. Eat raw food year round. Sometimes when it's -10 out, that kind of sucks, to me anyway. I'm cool with eating some soups and stuff like that. That's just me. So, and the other great thing about raw foods is you'll lose weight without even thinking about it. Because you're actually putting the right things in your body. Not everyone, but I did want to make the point that not everyone does well on raw foods. Okay, people that have extreme adrenal exhaustion. We talked about adrenals in the last class on Thursday, about how people that are adrenal types and have weakened adrenals might be very uncomfortable eating lots of salads and raw foods. People that have major digestive problems, really weak digestion, gives them tons of gas and stuff like that because they can't process the raw foods very well. So there are times when it's better for people to eat cooked foods. Okay, so just make sure you know that. Cooked food, sometimes easier for people to digest. I love steaming vegetables. Pretty much nobody's going to have a problem digesting steamed vegetables. If you do steam your vegetables, it's great to reuse the water if you can to make a broth or something like that, because a lot of the vitamins and minerals drop into the water. And you've heard that cooking food you can lose some nutrients, and that is true to a certain extent. A lot of studies show the opposite, that it actually activates certain nutrients in foods and things like that. So again, there's always going to be different opinions. But if you do tons and tons of barbecue, it is carcinogenic. I mean, that's a fact. We know that. The really, really burnt stuff, okay, that is carcinogenic. A lot of cooked foods taste better for people. Like I said, great for the winter. Eating some cooked foods in the winter. I like being naturally in tune, with the cycles of nature. I think most people see that. I think it's, on average, most people probably do more cooked foods in the winter than in the summer. So even though raw food is always better, Cooked food is not toxic poison. Okay?
What if you saute your vegetables in olive oil and you keep the whole thing?
That's just fine.
You're not losing anything, will you?
Yeah, anytime you cook it, you lose something. You lose the enzymes, you're going to lose some nutrients. But again, not anything to worry about. We can't worry about every single little thing that, that we're doing. So, nothing to stress over. I like cooking in coconut oil, I think.
Well, what about the nuts?
The nuts?
Yeah, because most of the nuts here are roasted.
Right.
So, because you say raw food is always better, but cooked food is not toxic. There are some receipts that say that when you eat like almonds or those kind of nuts that are roasted, they are kind of poison because the oil of the nut has changed. And
Right.
what about
So I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, I think nuts are great. I think roasted nuts is okay. Raw is always better. Okay? So a great way to eat raw nuts is to soak them in water, and they taste a lot better. Makes them more absorbable and easier to digest on the system. They're great. Almonds and walnuts are great that way. But you can soak any nut in water overnight. I don't think roasted almonds are necessarily bad. I think it depends on the company. I don't know if I'd eat tons of Planters roasted nuts in a can. You know what I mean? But if you like the taste of roasted nuts better, just find a good quality source of them. Get the roasted nuts at almonds at like Whole Foods if they taste better to you and you like them better. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I personally don't have a problem with that. You're still gonna get a lot of nutrition out of it.
When you say soak them, I've read that numerous times. What does that mean? So I'm going to go to the grocery store and buy a bag of nuts and then take them home and soak them in a container
No,
of
so
water?
you're gonna buy your nuts, okay? You're gonna have them at home, and then you're gonna take a couple handfuls, throw them in a glass of water at night, go to bed, get up the next morning, rinse them off, put them in the fridge, and then just eat them as you need them throughout the week.
What's the purpose?
Okay, so nuts have what's in it is called shoot, I just drew a blank. But it has a protective layer around it, okay? So that it doesn't sprout until it hits the soil. It's like an enzyme inhibitor, okay? A natural enzyme inhibitor. So that it doesn't sprout before it's ready. So it has to go to the ground before it's able to sprout. And that makes it harder for it to digest when we eat them raw. Okay, so it takes that enzyme inhibitor away from the nut when you soak it overnight. So a lot of people have issues with digesting nuts. Okay, this will really help with that. Okay, because it breaks that off of there. Yeah.
I've been soaking almonds and enjoying them, but I have been wondering if soaking them in mineral water that I use is okay. Or
Oh, absolutely.
The mineral water is okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that'd be the ideal way to do it, definitely, because it's going to absorb some of that. So.
Sometimes I don't recommend or don't say that it's necessary to soak macadamia nuts or some of the white nuts. Macadamia nuts.
I don't know for sure. I know almonds is the big one that they say to definitely soak. Walnuts, I just think they taste better. Yeah, and as far as the other ones, no. I don't see a reason that you'd really need to soak macadamia nuts, but I don't really know for sure. The only nut that I don't really recommend just for, can anyone guess what the one nut is I don't recommend? Peanut, because it's not even really a nut, it's a legume. And it's loaded with fungus, aflatoxin. And it's in everything. Any food that's in everything, it can cause problems for people, so.
Vaughn, you don't have to soak macadamia nuts. You don't have to soak.
Okay.
You don't have to either.
Enzyme inhibitor?
Yeah.
Okay.
But with the walnuts, you definitely want to soak that, and it's actually an overnight nut that you want to soak. It's not just like a 3 or 4 hour nut. So it's a little bit longer.
Thank you, Callie.
Sunflower seeds is really just for sprouting purposes, but
But like pumpkin seeds,
you don't have to put pumpkin seeds.
2 weeks.
So you don't have to soak pumpkin seeds or sunflower seeds, really most of the seeds.
But if you want to sprout.
But if you want to sprout it, you can, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, do you have a question?
When soaking almonds, I've just been putting them in water and putting them in the refrigerator then, and then even leaving it for a few days as I eat them. Is that okay to do?
If they're in a refrigerator, you'll be fine, but if they're on countertop and they're in the water, they can create bacteria or fungus, so as long as you keep it in the refrigerator.
Okay, so the last page, it's a journey. Okay, it's been a 5-year journey for me to get to where I'm at, and the journey will always continue. Okay, so the goal is, number one, to have the consciousness and awareness of what's going on. You're not going to be perfect starting tomorrow, but start making some changes, even if it's the simple one. I did a whole class on the 10 steps, like the 10 first basic steps anyone should take if they want to be healthy. Start taking baby steps. Okay, but just start moving in the right direction, and know that you don't have, a lot of people will read a book or something and they're like, tomorrow I'm raw vegan. You know what? And if you're inspired, then rock on, man. Go for it. But that doesn't usually work because you usually don't have the education and the knowledge. You haven't experienced enough things with your own body, been in tune with your own body. It's been real awakening for me just being in tune with my own body and what my own body wants, which has kind of led to some of the transitions that I've come to. Did somebody have a question?
Yeah, I just, can you name a couple, like you said, you had a class on the top 10 or whatever, things changed.
Yeah, well, some of the obvious things would be eliminate everything carbonated. Okay, so all carbonated beverages, which would be all sodas and carbonated, even carbonated water, all those kind of things. So anything carbonated, anything white, white flour, white sugar, so all the white stuff. Cut back on meat, which is kind of what I did to become a vegetarian. I made better choices first, then I was like twice a week, and then I was like once in a while, and then I'm like, okay, I'm ready. That was my transition. Same thing with dairy, making better choices on dairy, maybe going to raw farms instead of buying stuff in the grocery store. So those would be some examples. Okay, so let's see. So I gave just a quick example of what I think a healthy person would eat. And this is just going to come as a huge, huge surprise to you guys. I think a healthy person would eat fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, grains, legumes, a little bit of honey, sea vegetables, herbs, and other good fats. Is that like a crazy shocker to anyone? It's hard to do in our world, in our society. And if you're not a vegetarian, eating meat a couple times a week, not 2 or 3 meals a day, that is crazy. Done classes on food combining, 80-20 rules. Those things are all great to do. I gave just a couple of them. The majority of the diet should be vegetables. Again, I'm going back in time. People have always grown their own vegetables and eaten their own vegetables. The two great 80-20 rules: 80% vegetables, 20% something else. Regardless, that 20% can be rice, it can be quinoa, it can be potatoes, it can be sea vegetables, it can be lean meat, it can be anything. But focus on the vegetables for sure. And then 80% raw, 20% cooked. Again, if you want to go 100% raw, rock on, go for it. Doesn't work for everybody. So know what you're doing, keep educating yourself. I think supplementing is critical. Did a class on how to supplement, because I don't think people buy the right supplements because they're not putting the foundation for health in their bodies. So regardless of what you do with your diet, supplement intelligently, because you're not getting everything you need in your food. Even if you eat absolutely perfect, it's still important to supplement. And you can talk to any hardcore raw food, raw vegan, any of those type of people, and they all understand the importance of supplementation. Okay, even though they still eat really, really good. So the foundations is minerals. You help me harp about that all the time. A good greens powder, good fats, the good essential fatty acids, probiotics, the living bacteria in your gut. Everyone should be consuming these things every day. Okay, that's just your baseline. Yes?
Do you have approximately on the probiotics, the 25 billion or whatever, how many?
The more the merrier, I say. But the more...
Too many? Or?
You can't do too many. In fact, I did an entire bottle at one time. Renew Life, 50 billion critical care. And it's a good thing I wasn't near a ledge because I felt like I could fly.
Yeah.
It was totally crazy. I mean, I had this like almost an out-of-body experience. It was very intense. It was very intense. But I carry Renew Life. They're actually the #1 company in probiotics in the country. And I know they work because I've done, can I experiment? It's fun. I experiment on myself first before I experiment on you guys, okay? So I've done full bottles of other probiotics and felt nothing.
It's a little expensive though, right?
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah. So to answer your question,
I guess for a good high though.
yeah, to answer your question, there's a couple really good maintenance ones out there. Udo's got a good maintenance one. Renew Life's a good maintenance one. If you're dealing with an issue, it depends on if you need more lactobacillus, which is small intestine, or if you need more bifidus, which is large colon intestine. A lot of people have colon issues, Crohn's and colitis and diverticulitis and all those kind of things. They need more bifidus in the colon. So it depends on if you're dealing with anything. If not, you're just going to get one with a high count overall that's got multiple strains.
Who did you say the best company is?
Renew Life.
Renew Life is better than even Garden Life?
I think so.
Really? Okay.
Garden Life has some really good products though.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say anything bad about Garden Life.
Is yogurt so bad to eat probiotics through a yogurt?
Okay, here's the example I give people. You can eat yogurt, that's fine. Tastes good, right? So again, it's a consciousness. Okay, so you can buy organic yogurt. The next step would be finding yogurt from local farms because it exists. Okay, make your own. Exactly, that's your transition, and it's really super duper easy to do. And you can I got raw vanilla beans, man. If you want the best vanilla on the planet, put some raw vanilla beans in it, make your own. It's gloriously wonderful. Okay. The example I always give people is if you get a good probiotic like the Renew Life one I was talking about, one of those capsules, you'd have to eat like 100 containers of yogurt. And Activa's out here going, yeah, our stuff kills everything, really fast. You know? But there's hardly any cultures in there. Plus, it's kind of defeating the effect because you're buying it in the grocery store that pasteurizes everything. And you're trying to eat living bacteria. So it's kind of a oxymoron. So, what's that? Yeah, and they always add sugar, absolutely. Even the plain one. So.
There's one grocery store brand that I really like. Kelowna Supernatural.
Okay.
I don't think they have any added
What's it
sugar.
called?
I don't think they have added sugar in it.
What's it called?
Kelowna Supernatural.
Kelowna?
It's like Kalona.
Okay.
Supernatural.
So there you go. Kelowna Supernatural.
And, I mean, like even the fruit ones, not just the plain ones, they have like 8 grams of sugar, which is unheard of even for plain yogurt.
Yeah,
so
yeah. That's cool. Thank you.
If you have to get one in the grocery store, that's better.
So after supplementation, I put a super healthy eater. We eat no sugar, nothing processed, no fast food. I slipped in there maybe once in a while. You go to a restaurant, that's okay. I'll live with that. No starches, except for your vegetables. There's nothing wrong with potatoes. Okay, people. Thousands, millions of people have lived on basically nothing but potatoes for hundreds of years. People in Ireland, the Great Potato Famine, they all died because they were eating potatoes. That was 100% of their diet. So you can live just on, as hard as it is to believe, you can live on fruits and vegetables. Oh my gosh, believe that. Mm-hmm. And you can live on just one of them if you have to. Okay, we don't obviously recommend that. Recommend a wide variety, wide assortment, but you can. The liquids would be water, herbal teas, vegetable juices, and occasional fruit juice. We're going to do some fun classes coming up. I'm going to introduce Callie in a little bit, but she's going to do our next 3 classes on food demos, which is going to be awesome. And then I put the old question, hang on one second, does this sound difficult? Of course I put in bold, this is how every human being has eaten in every culture and every corner of the entire world for 7,000 years, or longer depending on your belief system. Okay? This has only changed in the last 150 years. So this is not extreme. We're not radicals. We're not extremists. Okay? Just because you're contrary, you know what they say, what's seen as wrong will be right, what's seen as right will be wrong. So a lot of the times when you're in the minority, you know you're on the right track. You see that a lot when it comes to health. Okay? So it's not that hard. The bottom line is we're spoiled, we're overfed, we're undernourished, we're addicted. We can't help ourselves, and we only eat this way because we're rich. And you're saying, oh, I'm not rich, I'm poor. Every single person in here is richer than 95% of the rest of the world. It's just the way it is. And that's the only way we'll be able to afford these types of illnesses that we're giving ourselves. So I just want to make a quick point. Am I doing okay on time? What time is it? Oops. Okay. I'll make this, well, you know what, I'll save that for another time. Okay, so.
Make the point.
Make the point? Okay, I'll make the point. it is an important point, okay? The information is overwhelming, okay, especially in our culture, okay? I dumb it down and I say, eat what God made, don't eat what man made, okay? That's not that easy when you're going out and you're trying to feed your family, and, you know, the wife wants to eat one way and the husband wants to eat a different way. You know, there's a lot of dynamics going on, okay? So, again, it starts with the consciousness, but it's a journey, okay? My own personal battle, I haven't completely written up my story yet because I'm not through with it yet, okay? Because it's a journey. I haven't gotten to the point where I feel comfortable in writing it. But, you know, I've battled addictions. I've battled food addictions, sugar, I mean, soda, alcohol, you know, when I was in my 20s. You know, people ask if I drink, and I'm like, I jokingly say I drank enough in my 20s to last me a lifetime. Okay, I say that as a joke, but it's probably true, you know? So, you know, we all battle things, okay? So we all have issues we're dealing with right now. You don't have to fix it tomorrow, okay? Even when I've been dealing with personal health issues, okay, I would make the mistake, and I think it's important for you guys to hear this, I would make the mistake of thinking I was healthy because I started putting something healthy inside my body. Okay? Because I was doing greens and doing my minerals and doing those things, I was cool going and getting the Dairy Queen Blizzard every night. Okay? Now, it's great that you're putting the good things in your body. That's a step. Okay? But you'll never achieve ultimate health if you continue to poison your body. It's a long road. It's really, really hard. Okay? Again, speaking from experience, I could sit here and talk for like 3 hours just of what I've experienced and dealt with my own body. Okay? It's physical, it's emotional, okay? There's a lot going on when it comes to food. Okay, so again, just more than anything, I just want you guys to have the awareness and the consciousness that, you know, you're in control, you can do it, you know, and just start taking steps to do it. Okay? Chronic illnesses, I just threw this in there because, you know, if you're diabetic, just stop eating sugar and starch. You won't be diabetic. It's really not hard. If you have any kind of infectious issue, okay, you have to stop feeding the infection. Okay, the number one reason people don't get over infections, get reoccurring infections, have chronic yeast infections, have chronic overgrowth of candida, is because they never stop feeding their infections and feeding their illnesses. They don't realize that the sugar addiction they have is because they're feeding parasites. They don't realize that the addictions they have is actually feeding something physical inside the body, and it's not as easy as mind over matter. So you have to figure out what's going on in your body. Bottom line is you'll never overcome it unless you stop feeding it. Okay?
What's high residue?
Well, I did a class on that. It's high residue versus low residue foods. But high residue foods, just in a nutshell, are foods that the body can't immediately process and absorb and eliminate. Okay, so that's going to be your obvious stuff, your fruits and your vegetables and this and that. Immediately absorbable. Stuff that is difficult on your body to digest and sits in your intestinal tract, those residues leak out into the system. And opportunistic organisms will feed on them. That's why anybody with an infection knows that they can't eat bread, or maybe drink a lot of wine, or eat cheese, or these kind of things, or sugar, because they have a reaction to it. It's because they're feeding these organisms in their body. So that's it in a nutshell, but you can watch, there's a class online about it if you want to watch it. So motivation for changing your lifestyle. I'll just give a couple reasons why people are motivated. Unfortunately, the most common one is number one. Chronic illness, disease, or just feeling crappy all the dang time. The old saying, I'm sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. So they're like, all right, fine, I'll try that natural health crap because I feel horrible. That's what happens. That, unfortunately, and especially here in Kansas City, you know, the information's new here, which is awesome. It's like an exciting time. There's this huge like awareness going on in Kansas City. If I was in California, they'd be like, you know, they know all this stuff or whatever. If they think they do, they still might not practice it, but at least they know it. But the main reason people come to see me, unfortunately, is because they're sick. You know, and that sucks. I wish like at least half of my clientele was people that are just like, all right, just teach me how to be the healthiest ever. That would be awesome. Okay, but you don't see that a lot. So the second one was my motivation. Again, I'm going to write up my story, but the motivation for me finally making the decision to stop putting crap in my body and stop feeding my illnesses and stop teeter-tottering and yo-yoing back and forth my health is that my body belongs to God. And it's my holy temple, and I don't want anyone else to have control over it. And I want to be in control of my own body. So if God was gracious enough to give it to me, I owe him the service to take care of it, because I feel like I'll be closer to God. How can you get closer to God if you're sick or unhealthy or on 20 pharmaceutical drugs or in the hospital or feeling crappy all the time? You can't. Everyone has a purpose. Okay? So I want to fulfill my purpose. I know why I was put on this earth. So that's why I made that decision. The last one is a consciousness and an awareness of a better way and a better you. Again, it just starts with consciousness. So let me introduce, that's pretty much it. Any last questions before I introduce Sally?
What is it about fish? You're not supposed to be
Like me personally? Or?
No, in the diet, there's no fish.
Yeah, that's okay. No, I put lean meats a couple times a week. So if you're not a vegetarian, lean meat a couple times a week. Fish should be a lean
You are a
meat.
vegetarian.
Right, I don't eat fish.
Okay.
Right.
What do you do between October and April?
Me personally,
Yeah.
I eat cooked foods.
Well, I know, but
I go to whole paycheck.
okay. I'm just wondering, like, what do you
Yeah, I have to
think
save my money the whole rest of the
Right. What do you
day.
think is the best way to best route? That was.
You know, the funny thing is that there's a Kansas City organic co-op in town that we did for a while. It's still going in there. Are you doing it? No? Okay, I don't know if it's still going, but they did it. Jordan started a Kansas City organic co-op, which was a great idea. I think we'll see more of that in the future. Again, as this movement grows in Kansas City, because it's fairly new to Kansas City, we're kind of in our infancy, you'll see more of this stuff come out where you'll be able to get produce year round. Yes, it's still going to be from California because, we're not growing it here, right, in December. But it's organic and it's from California and it's going to be better than what you're going to get in the grocery store and it's going to be cheaper. So you'll see more of those things coming. And even here in Kansas City, they have a year-round farmers market. They have a winter's farmers market.
Okay.
Downtown Overland Park has a winter's farmers market. It's inside, I think it's inside a chiropractor or somebody right in downtown Overland
Okay,
Park.
I didn't know that.
So it exists, but you're going to be fairly limited on what you
Right.
can get. But you're going to get a lot of great fall things. You're going to get your squash and do soups and so it's cool.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So.
Did you put the resource list online for the farmer's markets, or? how-
Yeah, actually, the resource list, my web designers should be putting it on my website anytime soon. I don't know when that's going to be, but if you want my resource list, which has like everything you can imagine, chiropractors and holistic dentists to where you get your mercury amalgams done, and a book list and a movie list and all kinds of stuff, I can just email it to you. So just email me and ask me. Best thing to do is email me so I can respond to you. Okay, so I'm going to bring up Callie real quick. So this is kind of an intro food class, general class, but the next 3 weeks are going to just be so awesome. I'm so pumped because next week is salads and salad dressings. Okay, so now I'm officially vegetarian. I'm going to have to eat lots and lots of salads. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is eat the same boring she's really tall. The same boring salads over and over and over again. And I do that. And it sucks. It's like, the other day, I love pepperoncinis, but I always used just to eat them on sandwiches at Panera Bread. I discovered, oh my gosh, I could put pepperoncinis on my salad, and it's like, yeah, like I got an awesome salad now. Just like one little change. So I believe the salad dressing makes the salad. So she's going to do salad dressings in 2 weeks. We're going to do juices, like I've talked to some of you about, like how to make those superfood juices and not have to spend $50 on a bottle of Monavi. Sorry, Monavi's an okay product, but you can do it yourself. It's fresh. We talked about freshness, local, and the superfoods you can buy for pennies, and just add them in there. And you'll put in 1 scoop. You'll put in 10 times more than any of those Monavi drinks. Okay, we're going to do smoothies, and then in 3 weeks we're doing desserts. Okay, so I'm going to let Callie introduce herself.
I'm Callie, and I write a raw foods blog. It's Roxy, so you can go and read all about what I do and have recipes. It's rawxy.com. I've been doing raw foods for about 5 years, and Roxy is the combination of Foxy and Raw. My whole thing was there are so many raw foodists who keep targeting the same demographic, and they keep inspiring people that are already into raw foods. And my whole thing was, well, how do we get people that aren't into that into this, and show them that just because you eat organic whole foods and foods that aren't cooked doesn't mean that you live in a treehouse and snack on bark and, you know, I mean, like, you can be super foxy and still consume natural foods. So that was kind of my driving goal behind my blog and some products that I've started doing and working on. So that's kind of
Did it?
yeah,
And
what else.
I just want to say, Callie's awesome, but read her website and read her story. If any of you haven't read her story already, it's a story that about 50 million women need to see. Okay, so read her
Yeah,
whole
you can
health
read
journey,
all about it there.
and yeah,
Can you just give us
it's
a
powerful.
synopsis?
Yeah, I had an eating disorder for 6 years, and about after 2 years, I was put into outpatient therapy, and I had all these counselors and nutritionists, and I was like, I don't feel good. Nothing, you know, I kept wanting food. I was so addicted to food, and no matter what they told me, or I mean, yes, some of the there is a lot of psychiatry that goes, you know, on with eating disorders, but there's a lot of that kind of stuff. But a lot of it I found was with food, and so I finally at one point just like gave up with my doctors, and I figured out that there was a huge link between binging and nutrition, and so I just started trying every diet that I could possible, and everyone left me hungry and still binging, and so eventually I discovered vegan, and so I went vegan, and then I read a book all about healing with raw foods and how they were healing cancers, and it was a totally new concept to me, and so that's whenever I started. I was one of those people who just like dove into raw foods, like, and slowly over time the binging just went away, and I think it's because for once my body was nourished, and I had all my vitamins and my minerals, and I didn't want that other crap that they sell at the grocery store. So that's a big driving force behind why I promote raw foods. And I'm like high raw, like 80%. In the summertime, it's probably like 100%. But in the wintertime, potato here and there can kill you.
Good stuff. So if you want to sign up for those classes, they're $10 each. The dessert class, I put $10. It's actually $15. We realized our costs are more than we thought we were going to be because we want you guys to all sample and have lots of stuff. And what the other thing is too, a lot of those classes you go to, people charge you $30+ for those classes. So it's probably going to be more than an hour. So prepare for that, 1.5 hours to 2 hours. Okay, and you'll get lots of stuff to try and sample and stuff like that. So you should definitely come out for that. We need people to RSVP and pay in advance, so because we have to know how many people are here. That's critically important.
And we'll do things like massaging kale and using different lettuces and how to make dressings with cashews, so not just oil and vinegar because that gets really boring. And so different using cabbage as a base, pumpkin oil. Han's really obsessed with pumpkin oil, so we now have a recipe for it. And just a bunch of different ways to incorporate things. How to make salads that, like cashew-based salads that you can actually keep for 3 days and throw on lettuce, whether it be like a cucumber salad or just ways to make it really easy. We don't have time to spend like 5 hours making salads.
Make it foxy.
And make it foxy. It's the most important part.
Sweet. So
Do you have like a cookbook?
I don't. Just my archive on my blog.
yeah, there's a lot of recipes on our website.
Does this basically work out to be a time saver to eat this way instead of cooking?
I think it is. People think what I do takes a lot of time, and then every once in a while I'll decide to dive into a cooked food recipe, like a vegan cooked food recipe, and I'm like, this is so much work. I've got pans everywhere, the stove's on, I'm burning myself, and so I think it is a time saver, but it's something totally different, and the adjustment to get used to it, I think usually frightens people and thinks that it takes time. But when you're soaking nuts, you're not doing anything, you're sleeping. So it's really just about getting in a routine and learning tricks and different ways to save time.